Hey, how you doing, Patrick?
Hey, I'm doing fine. And you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Patrick and I have been talking about the weather and all sorts of things prior to this.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
Yeah. I always think it's hysterical that you always present it like, okay, we've just started and we've never met before and all of this, but yeah, we've been having a bit of a natter about the
Psst.
weather. Yeah, shh. But there's Patrick Posner. Patrick is the developer over at Simply Static. Simply Static is a WordPress plugin which enables you to create a static WordPress website. We've been over what that means. We had this is the third of 4 episodes. On the previous episodes, we had a conversation about what Simply Static does and how it can generate a static website. What does that mean? How does it work? Where do you host it? And all of that. And then on the previous episode, Patrick tackled the thorny subject of how do you get forms working on your website. And so that was all explained. Another important component of the website is, of course, search. You go to a website, you want to be able to search around and figure out what's on this website. And that's the endeavor today. Patrick's going to explain how search works. I guess we're all familiar with search, but Patrick, are you ready to go?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Okay, let's share the screen. And sorry, I should just say very quickly, just before we get Patrick on the screen, if you like, let's just share a couple of things very quickly. Oh, I've lost it. Where's it gone? Can't remember. Essentially, if you would like to share this URL, if you want people to join us, go to wpbuilds.com/live. I can't find the little caption, but never mind. wpbuilds.com/live. Stick that in Twitter or wherever you feel comfortable, and join in the conversation. If you want to make a comment, please feel free to do that. If there are any comments, then we'll raise them for Patrick as a question at the end. Okay, over to you.
Sure. So today we're gonna be talking about search. Usually something not all websites need, but you will notice if it's not there, especially if you have like a bigger website and if you have like a multilingual website, it's even more important to have like a decent search solution. We already got kind of used to the not so great default search solution we have in WordPress. May, um, it's mainly the reason because we are not using search as often on a website as we could. So you're all familiar with how the WordPress search works, and as it doesn't allow things like typo tolerancy or fuzzy searching and things like that. You basically add your term, click enter, or click the little search icon, and you get like only exact matches back from your search. The traditional search in WordPress does require PHP to work, so you need a traditional server to perform search requests and get a search result back. So that's why we're gonna be talking about how we can kind of mimic that solution on a static website where you don't have a traditional server. We will be covering 2 different services, and Nathan and I just talked about a third option that I only want to briefly mention, which is called
Google Custom Search.
Yeah. There's a free tool that you can use. It's localizing here. What?
Oh, it's okay.
Just bear with me here. So it's a service provided by Google that you can use to implement basically the Google search into your own website. It's pretty easy to set up. It just takes like 2 minutes. It's free, but there's a little catch, and that's primarily the reason why I don't recommend it. You also get the paid search results. So
Oh, interesting. Okay, so
if
you
there's a
get the
paid
ads.
search result
Yeah.
here, right, and it's maybe it's your competitor ranking for your name, for your product, for your service, whatever you provide to your visitors, customers, they will show up within that result. So you can work around that if you choose a paid plan from Google Custom Search. I mean, there is for sure a paid plan. It's like a Google service. We all know how it works.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you don't want these ads, you need a paid plan. As a paid plan is based on usage, and it's kind of expensive. So you get like, I'm not sure about the exact number, but like 1,000 search requests for $2 a month or so. So if you have a pretty frequent website, that can add up pretty quickly, right? Each
Yeah.
is like one request to the Google Search API, and 1,000 search requests per month are pretty much like nothing, right? But if you're still not scared, and maybe your website ranks for something so specific that there's no one placing ads, there's a free plugin called WP Google Search that you can use in combination with Simply Static, and it will work right away. No fancy modifications or anything needed. You can basically take a look at the settings here. It couldn't be easier, right? So you enable the plugin, you add your Google search engine key. That's the only key thing you get if you log into Google Custom Search Engine. So there's no way to copy anything else besides that one API key. You add it here. You can use custom CSS, and you get a little shortcode that you can add onto your website.
Okay.
And yeah, they basically display a little search box. Where's the example? Here. Here's the search box.
Yeah, yeah.
They haven't made a screenshot from the result, but you get the idea right here, right? You have the search box, and here are the search results. And as you can see, they are already like paid ads right here within the free custom search engine integration. So that's, for me, that's kind of a no-go for using it, especially as we will cover Fuse.js in a moment, which is a better solution without ads and without any external API integrations and without any cost per search per month attached and so on. So
great.
Yeah, that's it to Google Custom Search Engine. Quickly moving that away. Let's talk a bit about Fuse.js. Fuse.js is the first service we're taking a look at. It's kind of a search solution for nerds because it doesn't have like a one-click integration, and it doesn't have like an easy-to-explore demo. It's really a JavaScript package that you can use within your app. It's kind of popular if you're more into like React development and all that fancy Jamstack stuff. But it does ship with some pretty neat features. One is fuzzy searching. So if you only add parts of a word or use like ternary operators, all that advanced stuff, you get pretty decent results out of the box without any configuration needed. They also support typo tolerance, which means if you have a typo in your word or in your search term, Fuse.js will still be able to provide the correct search result.
Okay, so like if you typed mouse instead of house or something like that, it would figure out. Okay, right.
Yeah. So that's pretty neat. All without any external dependencies. Simply Static includes the whole thing, the whole package for you. So you don't have to include anything yourself or have to worry about any third-party API requests. Everything is running on your server. So before going further into Fuse.js, maybe we're switching back into Simply Static and take a look at the settings. So if you're in your admin area and you go to Simply Static, settings, and search, by default, you will see something like that.
Right.
So all you have to do is like obviously activate the little toggle and you get all the advanced settings here. You can choose from two different search integrations. One is Fuse.js, which we are talking about right now, and once that's done, we're talking about Agolia as an external search API provider.
Okay.
Setting up search in Simply Static is kind of simple if you are a little bit familiar about how websites work. So you will already see we're talking about CSS selectors. So if I just open the static website here to give you like a basic crash course about HTML and what are
Yeah.
CSS tags and
Oh
so
dear.
on.
Yeah.
So we talk about CSS selectors. We already add the most common ones. So title, yeah, I mean every HTML file or WordPress. If you open a WordPress website, what you see right here isn't like WordPress, it's HTML, right? Because if you request a WordPress website, it will get all the dynamic information and display just HTML. If we use something like Simply Static, we skip the entire part and get just the rendered HTML. And each HTML document has a title attribute. So that's like a pretty common solution to get like the title of a page, let's say the contact page, for example. And if you just search for title, that's a meta one. Here's the title. You will see, in our case, it's Yoast SEO already optimizing the title attribute right here. So each document has a title attribute, and you can pick whatever you want. So if you're quite familiar with HTML and its structure, you can choose like meta tags or anything you can find within your DOM. If you're not familiar with it, just stick with the title. In like 99% of the cases, that will be absolutely fine as your search result title. And if you want to further optimize it, you can still use tools like Yoast or RankMath or any other kind of SEO plugin and modify the title there and get the modified result into your search results.
Right.
So the next step is the content. There's this body tag. Each HTML file, you will see you can open and close this head and body. And body is pretty much everything that you can see on your web page. It contains the header, the footer, all the content. Everything is included inside of the body tag. If you want to further customize it, let's say you only really want like the content, you could use something like WP block group. Maybe isn't the best fit here, but maybe WP site blocks, for example, to narrow down, or here, entry content, for example. Entry content is just the content without the header, without the footer.
Yeah.
This one could be also used. Just quickly showing you how it's done. So we have this body tag. And if we want to use entry content, quickly moving back here, it's a class. You can see it because of the class attribute right here. So you can also use CSS classes. You can also use things like IDs, whatever you want. We're keeping it simple for now, just staying with the body tag. There's also a thing for excerpts. Excerpts are like this little summary that is automatically generated by WordPress for each post, especially for posts or any kind of custom post type. There's a little excerpt, which is like a short description of your page posts. This is optional, so you don't have to use it. You can also disable it within the search results, but it's kind of handy. So to give you a little bit more context, how that might look like, you can just start a search right here. That's the title, and that's the excerpt. So you can disable the excerpt, but if you do that, the only thing people get is the title of the search result, which might be enough if you're really optimized your titles. But at least in my opinion, it's always good to give a little bit more context to your users to make it easier to find the things they are searching for. So that's why we enabled the excerpt by default. But as I said, you can also disable it. So quickly getting back to indexing. There's another setting here, exclude URLs. As the description already says, you can exclude complete URLs or just patterns. So if you type something like author right here, all automatically generated author URLs from a WordPress website will be excluded from the search index. That can be kind of handy if you have something like author pages. It's a pretty decent example, but also things like archives. So if you have like a pretty, even with like a smaller block, you have an automatically generated archive and you have paginated pages or archive pages. So all posts from last year, September, all posts from this year, January. And you want to include the specific post, but not the archive views. So by adding the word archive here, you can simply exclude everything that matches with archive. You can really narrow down the search results here by adding specific tags, especially things that are automatically generated by WordPress, category pages, tag pages, whatever you want to really.
Can I just ask? Sorry, can I just quickly ask a question? So, where you've written author and archive, the heading above that says exclude URLs. Now, author isn't a URL, but is that just a string of text you're using to identify anything which WordPress would output as something to do with an author and something to do with an archive?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. That's why I added this little additional description below the field. You can use full URLs, parts of an URL, or just plain words. A common term is stop words. So it's a little bit techy, but stop words basically mean everything like fill words and things you think of it like a exclude list. So any term, URL, everything that matches will be excluded from the search index later. So yeah, that's basically it to the basic configuration of the search.
Do you have an option there to, in your exclude URLs again, do you have an option to, I don't know, add a star, for example, the star symbol to anything
you can
before
also use,
or after?
Things like wildcards. So
wildcards. Sorry, I should have said that.
Yeah, everything matches my name, for example, can be used, but also things like, I'm just copying the URL right now because it's kind of cryptic. So something like something like that would also work, right? So everything matches this specific pattern with an infinite number of characters before that string.
Or after, yeah. Oh, that's really powerful then, isn't it? If you've got the wildcard character, and you understand the way that WordPress outputs URLs, you can really get very fine. Well, also in a one simple entry there, you can exclude whole swathes of WordPress that you don't want discovering. Right, got it.
Yeah, that's usually pretty hard to do within like the WordPress default search, right?
Yeah.
You need all kinds of filters and you have to add custom code snippets and all of that. That was mainly the reason why I integrated these options to make it really simple to have like a decent search with decent results. Especially because you have to kind of give up on your existing WordPress search when you go static. But I think with the settings and the solution in place implemented in Simply Static, you have like a pretty good alternative on board without giving up too much on your existing WordPress search integration.
Right.
So yeah, that's pretty much everything you have to know about indexing. Indexing is basically the process of we crawl the entire website and we are looking for these rules right here. And based on the configuration here, we create a search index. A search index can be just a plain file. So we can take a look into that.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
WP content uploads, simply static configs, Fuse index. So it's really just
it's long.
plain JSON file. And you can also remove things like spaces. So if you have like spaces in your title or you have line breaks and everything like that, we automatically convert them to make the file as tiny as possible. So if we have like handy little free web tool.
Yeah, amazing.
So that looks a little bit easier.
More readable.
Way more readable. So each result contains an object ID. The object ID is basically the post ID within WordPress. So if you have like the ID 18 is the same ID as the post ID in WordPress for the homepage, for example. And all you have is like the title, the content, the excerpt, which we're not using right now, and the path. So the path is escaped. So which means it's like a secured input to avoid anything unwanted, any unwanted script executions or
nice, yeah,
CSS or whatsoever, right? So yeah, that's basically it. A structured file with all the results that are being found during the crawling process.
Can I just interrupt at this point and ask? So essentially, given the parameters that you entered into the plugin, so we went through that, it creates this file. This file, I presume we're going to go on to that, but this file is then consumed by Fuse.js, and this file would need to be updated if you created new content and so on and so forth. And it's a representation of your entire website in one JSON object, which can then be crawled by the Fuse service.
Right.
Okay.
So, okay. We talked about the indexing part. We talked about how to exclude, how to get the content you want for the specific search fields. So for the title, for the content, for the excerpt. We took a quick look into how this index file actually looks and how it works. Now there's only one last setting, especially this setting here differs between Fuse.js and Algolia.js. So Algolia.js needs a couple more settings, but for
Fuse.js, just a quick reminder, Patrick, we can't see your drop down. So if you are interacting,
okay,
yeah. But that's okay. It's okay. We're stuck on Fuse.js anyway, so it doesn't matter yet. Yeah.
So all you have to do is adding the CSS selector for your form input field. We also have a shortcode that you can use instead called SSP-search. The reason why I'm no longer recommending it here within the settings is because if you have a search on your WordPress website, chances are pretty high that you already have some kind of form or search input field on your website. Imagine having like you set up a website with Elementor and you use their header builder. There's a search integration. You add this little, I'm not sure, it's like a widget or a module or so.
Yeah.
But you get the point. It's like a block or module. Depends on the page where you're using. And there's already a search and it's styled pretty nicely and it works. And we want to make the transition from WordPress to static as seamless as possible without like finding a way to inject that shortcode into your header by editing PHP files or anything like that. So there is a way to use the shortcode, but I would highly recommend using the CSS selector approach, as it is way more convenient, because all you have to do is, again, inspecting your search, your little search box. And if you scroll up a bit, you will notice there's a form text. So each search field is basically a form. And all you need to do is finding the right tag. It can be pretty much anything. At least it does need to be somewhat unique. So in our case, we have like WP block search, for example, as a class. Some forms even have like a unique ID that you can use instead. At least use something unique, so you don't have like, we have a form. It's a pretty decent example right here, right? If we would just use input, the search would also trigger right here in your contact form, right? So that's the reason why you have to use, or why you should use something unique. So in our case, it's WP block search, and I already added that one as a CSS selector right here. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You save the settings.
So just to explain, the CSS selector that you've just picked is you're able to integrate that with the search that you've implemented from, for example, say a page builder or something like that. If you drop it into your page builder, this is where I want my search to go, you can then find the highest level, if you like, CSS selector, and you can hijack what's going on in there by picking the right selector and then dropping it into the settings.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So that's all regarding the configuration for Vue.js. So the next pretty obvious question is, where's the generate index button? Or how do I get this index
where is
going?
Where's
and
the
updating?
index? Yeah.
So during the time of developing that particular part of Simply Static, we gone through countless of iterations, a specific button, a simple preview showing you the generated index file. But at the end of the day, all of that absolutely doesn't matter. When do you want to update your index file? Yeah, when you run a static export, right? So if you're not updating your static website, why wouldn't you update your index file? So we combined it now with the static export in Simply Static. You already noticed that I've done a static export today, and there is a line called indexed 155 of 155 pages. That's indicating that there's a search index that is filled up during the static export. So once you have configured the search integration, you can run your static exports as you are already familiar with, and you don't have to spend any time looking for an index file or making sure it's transferred to your static website. Simply Static is handling all of that for you in the background. So the hardest part really is like the configuration of the search based on the CSS selectors. But once that's done, it's automatically updating on each static export.
Okay, so if you are using the free version of the plugin, when you create a static site, be it a zip file or whatever, it will create the search at the same time. And if you're on the pro version, where you can, it's more granular, you could update a particular post, for example, it will then run the same thing. So in other words, the process of indexing is bound to the process of search. They're inseparable, right? So you don't need to think about it.
Right. So that's the whole idea of especially Simply Static Pro, to simplify and make it more convenient. So the search integration also updates, for example, on single exports and build exports. So if you change your post and maybe you have even changed the title or the permalink or whatsoever, or everything, and you click this little update static button from your page, it will also update the search result accordingly. So
can I just ask, does it rebuild so let's say you're on the Pro version, which we know will update a particular post only, so you don't have to go through the process of re-indexing the whole site. Does it just update the search index for that particular post as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
So if you have, it depends a bit on the search integration you use. In case of Vue.js, it's like a rebuild of the entire file.
Oh, okay.
Because it's faster to rebuild the entire JSON file than it is to open, parse, find the search ID, replace it, and save the file again. In case of Algolia, we're really updating that specific search item in your index without updating your entire index each time.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll come on to that later, but that's interesting to know. Thank you.
Yeah. So we've done our export. We will absolutely do another export in a moment when we switch to Algolia, but just assume we've done our export now and all the files are now on your static website. There's one handy feature we added with 3.0 of Simply Static, which is the ability to test the integration without checking it on your static website. So what usually, that was also the case for the search integration, you have to test it on your static website because of the CORS requests problematic we talked in our last session, right? So the search integration doesn't have that problem because we're either reading from a file from the same system or from an external API. So what you can do if we just open the WordPress website, it's not a static one, right? Here's a little black admin top bar. So you can be sure we are on a WordPress website. And if you start searching here, you will notice that the search works. And that particular search is already the static search integration. It's not from WordPress. WordPress doesn't have, if you are not adding like an additional Ajax search fancy plugin, you will not get any recommendations if you're searching on your WordPress website, right? So if we click enter right here, you will be redirected to the homepage because on a static website, there isn't a search result page, right? So we kind of mimic the behavior, but what happens right here, if you do that on your static website, there's simply nothing happens if you click enter. But what happens here on your WordPress website is that the PHP server gets a request, doesn't know what to do with it, and simply redirects you back to your homepage. On the static website, we see that in a second. It's like if you select something, you can also use like arrow keys and switch between. Oh, that was too much. Too many spaces, but you can also select them with your keyboard. And if you click on it, you get to the according search result. In our case, it's funny enough that I picked the only German search result. We still haven't talked about WPML and how all of that works, but now we're here. Let me quickly tell you a little bit about how search works on a multilingual website. You can define different indexes per language with Simply Static and WPML. So if you're on the German website, for example, you get only German results. If you're on the English website, you only get English search results, which is
that's interesting.
Kind of nice.
Right. Yeah.
And that obviously works with Vue.js and Algolia. So you can completely separate the settings and the search results per language.
Wow, nice.
Yeah. So getting back to the settings, we talked about Vue.js, how it works. It's absolutely a service for all those GDPR fans out there because we don't have any external APIs involved, and we have everything running on your local machine. This even works offline, right? So if you have like your website is only available from an intranet, which is closed within your company, for example, Vue.js will also work because there is no external dependency involved here.
Interesting. Okay, right.
So there's a lot you can do with Vue.js, besides from fuzzy searching, modifying the index files, and so on. I don't expect anyone getting more familiar with Vue.js as we or getting more into Vue.js as the thing we have integrated in Simply Static. At least I never got like a customer request asking
Yeah,
about,
can we have more?
hey, can we have more integration with Vue.js? Usually what happens if someone has a more advanced need for a pretty decent search solution, things like an index search, a facet search, things like that, people tend to use Algolia. So that's the reason why we're switching to Algolia right now. So
just to be clear, Vue.js is an option. You can use Vue.js. It's one way of integrating search into a static website. But now we're moving on to a different solution, which is called Algolia, and it is, you can't combine the two. You got Vue.js, and there's Algolia, and they're different things. So we're about to embark upon something new. Okay.
Okay, so you can't see the select menu, but if I change it,
we got it now. We got it.
Where, yeah. Okay. So you will notice the indexing settings are exactly the same. You can modify them as you like, or just leave them as we configured them. So the interesting part is this little settings box below called Algolia API. And there are a couple of things that you need to set up. There's a thing called application ID, admin API key, search only API key, name for your index, and that one is familiar, a CSS selector. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between Vue.js and Algolia. And once we're done that, I will explain what all this AD API key things mean.
Okay.
So the main difference, just getting to the homepage here. Hopefully we don't get redirected to no, we don't. So Algolia is an external API for handling search. Can we get that in English here, please? Yeah. The main difference here is that Algolia provides a lot more features than Vue.js. So if all you need is a basic but pretty neat search integration, Vue.js is a way to go. But if you really want something more powerful, Algolia is a whole nother level of search integration. We're talking about things like AI-powered search results. We're talking about location-based search integration. We're talking about multilingual setups, so you can search in one language and it can also connect it to another language, so that you have like a multilingual search. Even if you're only using English, you can provide multilingual results. There's a lot you can do with Algolia, and they integrate with pretty much anything you can even think of. So let's imagine you have a WordPress website, but you also have like a Salesforce CRM integration. You can also combine Zeus and make your search find everything related to your WordPress website, but also everything from your CRM that might be useful for your visitor. Case studies, things like where's the next webinar happening, or where's the, I don't know. You get the idea. There's a lot of things going on with Algolia, and there are tons of integrations. They have an entire marketplace of integrations that you can use. They even have things like voice search. So if that's something you like to provide to your customers or to your visitors, you can also use voice search. You can have your own image search, a different mobile and app search experience, and so on and so on. there are tons of ways to work with Algolia, and tons of integrations, documentation integrations, and so on and so on. So it's really something different to Vue.js, where you just get the basics, but in a good way. So fuzzy search and things like that. But Algolia is like bringing all of your searchable knowledge together in one little input box. The pricing is also pretty decent. At least I hope they haven't changed. No. You get 10,000 requests per month for free for all the features. So that also includes geo-based search results, multilingual results, and so on, which is like 10x the amount of requests you get from Google Custom Search Engine.
Wow.
If you don't want to use ads, right? So for additional requests, they only charge 50 cents per 1,000 requests. So even if you have like 20, do you have a hilariously good month? It's Black Friday, everyone visiting your website, everyone searching for the next deal. You can pretty much get away with like a $5 invoice or so at the end of the month. So I think it's pretty fair in terms of pricing, especially considered the amount of features you can use within Algolia. So yeah, that's basically the difference between Vue.js and Algolia. It's also faster, but yeah, I mean, sure, it's faster. So it's running on a dedicated cluster environment, and they make sure all search results are delivered in like milliseconds compared to Vue.js, which is kind of dependent on your static website. So your static website is fast, but if you have like a 2 GB JSON file because you have like a 100,000 pages website, it might take some time for your visitors to get the results they want, because we have to parse this JSON file, right?
Got it.
If you have a bigger website, you might want to don't hustle with Vue.js and go straight to Algolia right away. And yeah, so now we're talking about setting up Algolia. We already knew external APIs can be kind of tricky. Everyone that has watched the first episode of our little live stream here will know what I'm talking about. So what I've done, just in case, is I created an index and also filled it up with some search results right here. But what we are doing right now is starting basically from zero. So if you log in to Algolia, that's pretty much what you see. It's a little bit confusing, and there are like tons of options, but the important thing is the API keys, right? So we need basically an application ID, an admin API key, and a search-only API key.
Yep.
So how do I get that? Quickly closing that one. One thing you will notice, the third menu point once you log in to your account is API keys. It's like the number one first thing you want to use or you want to have if you start working with Algolia. So in our case, I already created a project, but if you create a new one, it's basically the same thing. So just name it. It's not very creative, but you get the
idea. No, it's okay.
WPL's demo 2.
Number 2.
You can choose your subscription. Don't get confused. They made it really what's the best term to explain it?
Confusing.
So, yeah, kind of scary, because there's like max 10K search request, only up to 1 million records, which is like, yeah, so absolutely fine for like 99% of the websites, but they kind of want you to upgrade, and but you don't need it. You can just use a build plan, which is free. The Grow plan has the same free tier included, but it's already aimed for higher request amounts. That's why you already get like this the paid plans for the records at the starting price. We start with build free, selecting a data center. You can get pretty much any location you want. If there isn't a location close to you, you can already, there's a little contact us indicator here, but if you need something really specific because you're living in Alaska or so, you can absolutely reach out to Algolia and asking for a data center close to you. In our case, we're just going with European Union West. Review our application details. So that's a little summary. We have the free plan. We have 10K requests. We have to accept the terms of service. Absolutely. And create the application. Oh no, there's
it was bound to happen.
All the bridges. That's
Find pictures of people on motorbikes. Yeah, good luck.
That's a bridge.
Well, that wasn't so bad. If you got off that lightly, that's pretty good.
Oh,
yay!
Yeah, I'm kind of a Google Recapture Pro already. So, okay, we set up our application. There's only one thing left to do. We need an index. Index is basically the online version of our little fused JSON file that we've seen earlier. So the name can be pretty much anything, but please don't use spaces. Anything lowercase, short term, maybe, should be absolutely fine. In our case, it's WP builds demo 2. So you click on create index. And the index is created. One thing I absolutely not understand, and at least from a user, I mean, I'm not the CEO of Algolia, and I'm also not part of the user experience team. But what I would expect is if I create an index, isn't there something that should happen? Hey, what's up? Do you need your API keys? Maybe. So
yeah, because it feels like you're done,
here,
right? It's all over. It's finished.
Yeah, but
yeah, okay.
So what we are doing, we are already in WP's demo 2. If you click on the result again, we're getting back to our little overview page, and we have created our index. If we now get back to API keys, WP's demo 2 is selected. There we go. Here are the things we're looking for. So there is this application ID, there's a search only API key, and there's the admin API key. The application ID is basically the name of your project in an encrypted way. The search only API key is for the actual search implementation in the front end of your website. So that one is completely safe to be visible within the code of your static website. And there's an admin API key, which obviously shouldn't be available on your static website, which is stored inside of WordPress. That's pretty much the exact same values we already added right here. And all that is later available within our little JSON configuration file is the search only API key. So now it seems we do have to update our static website. Quickly checking that we still have GitHub configured. Yeah, looks good. WP demo. Okay. Clicking on the button right here. Waiting a moment for our static export to run. Hopefully, GitHub will not go into our way. And
see episode 1 for how to.
I mean, I've done an export like 2 hours ago, right? So it should work, but you never know.
It's looking good. It's looking good.
So yeah,
fingers crossed.
We maybe take the time to talk a little bit further about how Algolia can help you with your search integration. If you go this little dashboard page, there's a little house right here. So if you click on it, you always get back to your familiar dashboard. What's interesting for us right now is the search part. So we created that project. I used the old keys now for WP build demo. So that's the right index here. And Another thing, pretty confusing. We selected this application, right? And we already clicked on search, but we're still getting redirected to the dashboard. That happens pretty much all the time. I have absolutely no idea why, but I think from a UI perspective, the idea was that you always select your application first before navigating anywhere else.
Yeah.
So be clever, choose your application before you're getting back to search. But if you've done that, you get the index. That's pretty much the online storage we already created. You get the index size, you get events, you get the average record size, which is kind of important because you have a little limitation in the record size. So let's say you can the search result integration in Simply Static is extendable with a filter. So things like adding an image, for example, are absolutely possible. The problem is,
right, yeah.
And that's also the reason why I haven't added settings to do things like adding images, for example. You have a limitation especially within the free plan. There's no limitation in the pro plan, sure thing. But in the free plan, you only have I'm not even sure, it's like 100 kilobytes or so. So to include an image, it really needs to be tiny. It needs to be optimized. And there's so much
per record,
involved.
right? You've got
per record.
Yeah.
The total size of your index is pretty convenient. I think it's like up to 1 gigabyte or so in total.
Oh, that's a lot. Yeah.
But the record size itself is a little bit tricky because 100 kilobytes aren't that much if you include things like, we're not even talking about videos, right? Just images. You can do that. It isn't that hard. There's documentation on simplystatic.com how to do that. If you really want to go crazy with your search results, absolutely up to you. You can do all of that. But keep in mind that there is a limitation of the actual record size in the free plan. So there's kind of a lot of stuff that you can configure right here. In 99% of the cases, even for bigger search websites, you absolutely won't configure anything here because the default search is so good that you don't have to configure anything. But if you want to, you can really go deep into the search results. You can add things like a ranking system. So let's say posts always rank higher than categories, for example, or pages rank higher than posts because pages maybe are your landing pages and more likely convert a user into a customer, for example. So you can really go deep into how the index performs, which search results are prioritized higher than others, which one you want to exclude. You can even go really, really nerdy and activate A/B testing. So, for example, A/B test the priority of your different content formats. So our pages
I'm just going to interrupt you, sorry, for 2 seconds. There's somebody, you won't hear it because my mic is largely on mute. There's somebody banging on my door. I suspect it's one of my family members who've forgotten a key.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I'm just going to go. I'll be like 1 minute and I'll be right back. I do apologize.
Absolutely not a problem. So Nathan's gone. We can do whatever we want here right now. Quickly talking about A/B tests. So you can run A/B tests and change the priority of your search results based on the ranking factors you have configured. Pretty much like how Google works and permanently iterating on your search results and implementing new factors and lowering the priority of other factors to make a really almost perfect search results, to increase conversion, to increase the search experience in general on your website. So you get the idea. You can get really deep into details right here. You can also add AI-based synonyms. So there's a pretty decent example right here. If your visitor types excellent, it would also match for things like great, outstanding, and so on. So you can train that model based on the actual searches performed on your website. But you can also manually add certain terms and let's say I figure out matching synonyms and even like excluding specific terms or including specific terms that should match based on the search intent. So quickly getting back to the export. The export is finished. Awesome.
Nice.
And welcome back.
Thank you.
I was just talking about this little AI integration that is also part of the Algolia Search Integration API, where you can manually add keywords, but you can also leave it completely to the AI, so they will match for synonyms and provide the correct search result, even if the exact term isn't part of your search index.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that is really nice. Yeah.
That's a pretty neat feature and something they implemented, I think, just a month ago. It's pretty new, so I haven't tested it myself. But the idea is quite great, right? So that you have like matching terms for pretty much any synonym you can think of.
Yeah,
and
nice.
It's also trained based on the search requests that are done on your website. So if
it learns what
synonym is typed in more often than the actual keyword you have added to your post, for example, Algolia will let you know and will suggest maybe changing and using the synonym instead. So yeah, there's pretty much a lot going on with Algolia integration. So yeah, I just got back to the export and it's finished already. So we can again test that on our WordPress website. The funny thing is that you really don't see a lot. There isn't a huge visual difference between using Vue.js and Algolia.js. But you will notice, it was a pretty decent example I figured out earlier today. You will see a difference in the quality of search results. I'm not sure if you remembered, but we also searched for my within Vue.js, and we only got, I think it was 2 results or so. And if we now search for my, there are more search results provided by Algolia compared to Vue.js.
Right.
That's because of their synonym and better index replication implemented in their tool compared to just Vue.js as with a plain JSON file index. So there are also things like 5 essential items, which is like the 3rd or the 4th blog article we have on our website here. So you will notice a difference. The more you configure within Algolia, the more powerful it gets. If you combine it with the AI integration, it gets even more powerful. So you can really go crazy with that. One thing I wanted to mention, which is a little bit more targeted towards developers, or more precise, maybe front-end developers, we're using the official SDK integration from Algolia, which is this little live search we just seen right here. But if you really want to provide an outstanding experience for your customer, for example, Algolia has some really extensive tutorials and even videos how to modify the existing search integration. A simple example.
Oh, faceted search. Very nice. Yeah.
So we're not talking only about a search box, right? There's an example section right here. Where is it? Instant search.
So faceted search then is where you can search against multiple things at the same time. So you can sort of drill down into content, can't you? So you could, for example, I don't know, maybe if you've got a car listing website, you could say, show me only Fords, or show me Fords that are blue, or show me Fords that are blue with a 2-liter engine, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We kind of get like a pretty basic example right here, but that's something I wanted to mention because we're only including the autocomplete, because it was
Right.
like the most common thing on a static website was like, okay, we need a search, we need some kind of autocomplete.
Yeah.
And it would be nice to get decent results back, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
You can use the index part that is provided by Simply Static as is, so you don't have to modify anything regarding PHP, and just swap out the front-end integration for the search with things like Instant Search. So Instant Search also provides things like sorting, different filters, live updates for different results.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's amazing. Wow, nice.
And it's highly performant, even with, like, let's say you have WooCommerce store which runs in catalog mode, so you don't have like the actual e-commerce part implemented into your WooCommerce store. And we have a couple of customers running a WooCommerce catalog with Simply Static, and use Algolia.js to have like an outstanding performant search integration on their static WooCommerce catalog, for example. And you can go really deep. There's also an example for the geo-related search
as well. Wow.
So that's also a thing, right? Algolia will automatically ask the user for the current location to allow request and geo-based searching. And you can do things like a store locator, for example, or I don't know, everything related to geographical position and search is possible with the Algolia integration.
So would you be able to, on a static site, be able to bind, let's say you've got a plugin like ACF there, so you've got a bunch of fields, and one of those fields is I don't know, the location. You could bind that into the custom post type, or the post, and then you could tell Algolia, okay, look for location in this type of data. Right, neat.
Yeah, that's why there's a filter included in Simply Static that you can use to enhance the search result with custom data. For example, from ACF, you add the location, you add maybe a city or
anything you can imagine,
a car type, whatever, right?
Right.
And you can build pretty much anything, and you still don't need a traditional WordPress website or a PHP server running to do these kind of projects.
And you say it's very performant,
listing websites, right?
A lot of that stuff in WordPress, it's a bit of a heavy hit, isn't it? You know, you are asking quite a lot of your server to go and do the work there. Whereas if you can offload it to Algolia and it does it, and you say it's performant, I'm trusting you there. That's a way of speeding that whole process up for the end user, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you get 1 million listings for free, right? So there's a decent chance you're getting away with a free version. And if you grow, paying like $10 a month for Algolia instead of $100 a month for a really beefy WordPress server to perform all these Ajax-related search requests for you,
right?
Isn't kind of an easy decision to make.
Yeah.
So you also don't have to hustle with things like backups, for example. If you offload all these search results to Algolia, your WordPress database will stay pretty small and is easy to back up with one of the most common backup plugins out there. Most of them are even free, so no costs related to that one if you have like a pretty small database, right? So offloading heavy search related tasks to Algolia is definitely a good decision, and also in combination with a static site app setup, an almost infinitively scalable approach to things like listing websites, geo-based services.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's amazing. It even begs the question, even if you don't have a static website, there's a lot of value in here. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Okay. How are we doing? Have you reached the end of what you want to say there?
Yeah, we pretty much covered everything important from indexing to Vue.js, the difference between Vue.js and Algolia, why Algolia is a pretty cool service and what you can do with it. So from my end, we can go to questions if there are any.
No, we've got no questions. I think that's fine. We'll what we'll probably do is we'll just wrap it up. I will post this on the WP Builds website. The way you're going to find this is if you go to wpbuilds.com, find the archives link in the main menu, and then this is what we're classing as a demo. So if you go to the demos archive, you will be able to find it there. Patrick, as always, is there anything that you want to share in terms of where people can reach out to you if somebody watches this? In 3 years' time, it'll be out there still.
In 3 years from now.
Yeah. But they want to, they're curious. They want to know, where can they find you? Where's the best places to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'm always reachable from simplystatic.com. There's a little support link right at the top. You can click on it, you fill out the form, and it goes straight into my inbox, and I'm replying as fast as I can. If you just want to connect and talk about all things nerdy static website, you can always reach out at Twitter, or is it called x.com now?
I have no idea what it's
let's
called.
Say
that thing.
Twitter for now.
Yeah.
It's Patrick Posner _. And yeah, you will already know that it's the right guy if the first thing you see in my bio is like developer of Simply Static. So
yeah,
you can't go wrong there. So Twitter is good. Email is good. Simplystatic.com is always a good way if you have more detailed questions or maybe technical questions. And if you're seeing that 3 years from now, we probably have already integrated GeoSearch and faceted search for your static website.
There you go. So you can find Simply Static online. Maybe go and search for it, for goodness sake. You get the pro version. If you're into that, there is a nice offer. If you use the coupon code WP Builds, I'm showing it as all uppercase. I don't know if that matters, but there's no spaces or anything like that. You'll get 25% off. That's very kind of Patrick to offer that. We will be back. We've been doing these each week, but we're going to come to our final one, but we're not going next week because of the fact that I'm hoping to go on probably very rainy holiday, it turns out, but never mind. We'll carry on regardless. But we will be back in a couple of weeks' time, and we're going to tackle, if memory serves, we're going to tackle what you talked about earlier, which was multilingual, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Multilingual would be fun.
Yeah, so we're going to try and... So by the end of it, you'll be able to set up a static website, host it somewhere. You'll be able to put forms onto it. You'll be able to add search to it, and you'll be able to make it international, all in 4 simple steps. That's great. So Patrick, I'm going to end it there. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for joining us today. We will be back.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. We'll be back in a couple of weeks, so we'll see you soon.